If you're planning on building your own desktop applications, chances are you've come across Electron. Electron lets you build cross-platform applications or desktop apps using web technologies you already know, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Hi, I'm Bernard from BetterStack.com, and in this video, I'll show you how to build a simple audio player that can play this. In the terminal, create a new npm project using npm init-y. This should create a package.json file. Next, let's install Electron, so back in the terminal, type npm install electron-d. And once that's installed, we can now create our index.js, and this is where we are going to create our Electron window. In this file, let's use console.log and say hello world, like an absolute beginner. And then in the package.json file, we're going to create a new script, and then make it execute the Electron command in the current directory. And now if we go back to our terminal and run npm run start, this should give us hello world. Now let's create our window. Let's import the app and the browser window from the Electron. The app is what you'll be using to control your application's life cycle, and the browser window lets you create and manage your app window. That being said, let's use the browser window first to create a new window. Let's set the width of this window to 600 and the height to 280. And now we can use the when ready to ensure that our app is ready before creating the window. Now if we go back to the terminal and run npm run start, we should get our window. Right now our window is basically empty, so let's load something inside it, and that's going to be an HTML file. That's why you see there is, for example, Figma app that you can access through your browser. But there's also a desktop app. That's because at the end of the day, the desktop app is really just running local HTML, CSS, and JavaScript inside Electron. That said, let's create an HTML file and call it index.html. And inside of this, let's keep it super simple for now. Let's give it a title, Audio Player App, and in the body, let's use h1 and type hello world. Next, let's go back to index.js, and in the create window, use the win.load file and apply the HTML file that we created. And now, if you run the app, you should see the content of your HTML. And that's basically how Electron works. And now let's continue working on our app. First, let's get rid of this menu bar because we don't really need this. So in the index.js file, inside the create window function, set the menu bar visibility to false. That should get rid of that menu bar. Finally, we're going to build the whole audio player app. So first, let's break down the core functionalities we need. Of course, the user should be able to open a file, specifically an audio file, so the user can choose what to play. A play button to start and pause the audio, and a time duration display to show how long the track is and the current playback time. In our HTML file, this is how it's going to look. We have two buttons for opening a file and for playing and pausing the audio. We also have a div for the time duration. Lastly, we're going to use JavaScript to add event listeners to these buttons and display the time. So let's create this app.js file inside of the scripts folder and then get all the elements that we need to control. Of course, we need an audio and then have a variable to check if the audio is playing or not. Let's begin with the open file btn. Add a click event and use the Electron API to open a file. For now, this API is not yet exposed, but that's okay, we'll do that after. Then we'll check if the file path holds a file. If it has a file, then we'll pass it to the audio source and then load it. Now we should be able to play that audio. But it's not going to work just yet, because in this line, we are trying to access this Electron API, and this is not yet exposed, like I said. So even if you run this app and press the open file button, nothing will happen. So what we need to do is create a preload script where we can expose the Electron API and invoke the dialog open file. So let's create a new file called preload.js, and in this file, we'll use the Electron's context bridge to expose just the functionality we want. What this does is create a global object called Electron API with a method open file. When this method is called, it sends a message to the main process, asking it to open the file dialog and wait for the result. So back in our index.js file, update the browser window creation to include this preload script. This way, the preload script runs before anything else in the renderer, exposing the secure API breach. And now while we're here in the index.js file, let's handle the actual dialog opening in the main process. This is where you can filter the files that you want to allow. And now if you save this file and run your app once again, you should be able to open an audio file. Awesome, now let's play the audio. So going back to the app.js file, I've added a click event for the play button. I'm checking if the is playing is true. If it is, then pause the audio. Otherwise, play the audio. And then below that, I've added a play and pause event to the audio to update the is playing in the button label. And finally, I've created a function to update the time display so the users know how long is the audio and what is the current time. If you want to see the whole source code of this project, I'll put it in the description below. But with that said, here's our app, and we can now open an audio file. And then we can play it. So that is Electron, a framework that lets you build desktop apps using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you want to see more Electron-related videos, subscribe to Better Stack and comment down below what you want to see next. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Bernard, and I will see you in the next one.